talk about, obviously, Sophia. I want to hear her story. I know her story, but people don't know her story.
Mhm.
And I'm going to ask you questions about, what it's been like since she's been gone, raising a family without her here and that kind of stuff, if you feel comfortable talking about that kind of stuff. So first, let's just jump into, tell me about like the birth story and Sophia being born and what that was like, and how did you learn she had EB?
Okay, yeah. So I had like a completely normal pregnancy with Sophia, a pretty normal birth. And after she was born, the only thing we noticed was like a tiny couple scabs on her. One was on her wrist. And I remember asking the doctor, my OB, what's that? It looks kind of weird. And they were just like, oh, it's a sucking blister. It's probably nothing. So that night we had no idea anything was wrong with her. The next day when she was evaluated by the pediatric team, they said, oh, she's got some of these scabs. They were concerned it was like a viral infection. So she did end up going to the NICU for that, and they tested for everything, and they gave her some preemptive treatments for some viruses, and it wasn't any of that. So they actually just sent us home, and they said, you know what, it's probably just some weird rash. It's totally fine. And at that point, she had no blisters or anything. So in the coming days is when she started getting some blisters in her diaper area. And again, we took her to the pediatrician, and at first they said, oh, that's odd, but there's so many weird rashes. It's not a big deal. And then the blisters with EB, if you don't drain them, they just keep getting bigger and bigger. So that's what happened with hers. And she had this, huge wound on her bottom. And that's when we went to a pediatric dermatologist. And even then it was like ruling out bacterial infections, ruling out this, ruling out that. And it took us about 3 weeks to get referred to Dr. Antea, who was our pediatric dermatologist. And he said, okay, this looks like EB. We did the skin biopsy, and it came back as probably junctional. And then we did the genetic testing, but ours took longer for some reason than most people in the EB community that I've seen. And so it wasn't until she was about 3 months old that we knew she had the most severe subtype.
So what was that like? You had 3 months at that point. Well, I guess around 2 months, because you found out around 3 weeks old that she had EB. At that point, you're starting to do research on your own, I assume. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So getting the news that it was junctional, what was that like?
It was shocking. She presented so mildly at birth, it was just the scab, and the blistering started off so mild. And so even when we first saw somebody who knew about EB, we were kind of reassured, look, she's presenting really mildly. We're going to be hoping that it's a mild case. So we were pretty blindsided by it being junctional and then it being the most severe subtype, because the severity of it showed up, but it showed up fast and it showed up later than we expected. And so it was the breathing issues. Once she started having that, even before she was diagnosed with the severe junctional, that's when I started Googling and seeing, oh, this might be really bad, because she was wheezing and she was starting to have like, internal involvement. But still, when I took her to ENTs, to doctor, like, everybody kind of wanted to assume it wasn't the worst case scenario. So I was told, it could be this, it could be that. It's probably fine. So I think we were kind of blindsided when it turned out to be as bad as it was.
Yeah. So what was her demeanor? So she was struggling with well, I know you've mentioned before she had like that wheezing sound when she would breathe. Did it seem like she was in distress? Was she in pain all the time from EB? Or did it seem like, this can't be right. It can't be junctional because she's happy and,
Right. Yeah. Like, when I said, when you're thinking of how to design a shirt, and I said, I think of sunshine and happiness with Sophia, it's because like she didn't often seem in pain. She definitely, you could tell like her breathing was labored, everything was painful, but she was like always wanting to laugh, always wanting to joke around. She loved to like kaboom and throw herself back and just smile at it. And, she wanted to listen to music. She wanted to explore things. And so she was happy. And we didn't even use, like, the only pain medication we used was Tylenol, because we were like afraid that maybe the stronger stuff would have more side effects, and then also take away that little bit of her personality. We didn't want to numb her. She had such like a zest for life. So yeah, it was hard to recognize that, yeah, this is really the most severe, this could be terminal, this could be the worst case scenario, when she was just kind of roaring through life, and like okay, I have EB, but I'm still gonna rock my life, and so it was definitely hard to fathom that it could have been this worst case scenario.
When you got the severe junctional, did you also get a life expectancy? And if so, how did that affect like raising her or anything, like your thought process behind everything?
What I've noticed is different about our story a little is a lot of other junctional families, I've seen them run into a lot of doctors telling them that this is terminal, like expect it to be terminal, kind of don't pursue treatment, which comes with its own set of difficulties. With me, my team and my doctors, they kind of never really, they were always say, let's look for the clinical trial. Let's look for the next step. Let's look at what we can do. And like, there's research on the horizon. So even when I kind of pointedly was like, what is the life expectancy? I felt like everybody kind of skirted around it with me, which was good and bad in some ways. Sometimes I look back at it and think like, I'm just grateful that I had all that hope, and I was not just focusing on it being terminal. But then sometimes I think, maybe it would have been helpful to be in a hospice program or have that support from that end. So I go back and forth, wondering what was best at that time. But for me, it really did, I feel like, help us live in the moment and just, enjoy our time with her and just always look to the future. So we didn't really focus on life expectancy. I know from researching my own that about a year was the life expectancy, but I also knew that we were in this clinical trial, and she was doing so well with it. So yeah, it was just.
Can you talk more about the clinical trial? What was that, and how did it help her?
Yes, so she was in a clinical trial that used gentamicin, which is an antibiotic. They found that it actually does a gene editing for the type of mutation that Sophia had. So she had a mutation that stopped her from producing a certain protein in the skin, and gentamicin magically reversed that stop sign and let her produce that protein. But it wasn't equal in all areas. That's what they're still trying to study. It helped, but it didn't quite give the boost that you necessarily needed to fully close your wounds or fully reverse damage. But what we found was that it was like a miracle for the airway. She had about 3 months when we found out that her diagnosis came back as junctional. Her airway had just started to deteriorate. She was basically like choking and gasping for air and just coughing a lot, but coughing fits that, you would turn like purple. It was really, really scary stuff. And it was that her airway was just so inflamed and so blistered and then re-injured and then blistered, so it would just keep inflaming. So while she was admitted for the first time for that around 3 months, and then we were just finishing up the enrollment in the trial at that time too. So she was able to start the treatment pretty soon after that. And it was a miracle. In like a week or two, she was breathing like, fine. And well, I say fine, but passes as normal for me. I mean, I think other people listening to her would think it sounds labored, but she was able to breathe on her own. And so that gave us just, time to be out of the hospital and to be managing the wound care, which was in and of itself horrible, but it really was the least of our worries with junctional. It was all about the internal stuff that we were really concerned about. So yeah, it was just about getting that medicine. And the problems that we ran into was, at the time, they didn't know that it could be injected through like an intramuscular shot. We had to get it through an IV, which involved a PICC line, which at that age involved being under anesthesia for surgery. And that's kind of where the problems came, because of complications during surgeries.
Do you feel comfortable sharing more about that? What were those complications?
So the medicine was working great, but with PICC lines in young infants and even with adults, they don't last too long. You can maybe get 2 months, 2 to 3 months out of them. And so that's what happened with Sophia. It's in her arm, where she's moving it a lot. And eventually it kind of starts to fall out. And so they needed to remove it one time. And we got it replaced. And each time she goes, it was a procedure that required anesthesia. And for us, we were really adamant that she couldn't be intubated during anesthesia, because with junctional, that amount of vibration in that area can just have catastrophic effects. So a lot of kids have had to do it, and then you need to a tracheostomy after, and that could have its own complications. So we tried to do it without intubation, and we were successful the first time. And then the second time she went in, we were also successful with that, but the skin on her arm from just like the IVs and stuff, it just completely shedded off of, it's just hard to have it done in such a gentle way. And we got a lot of skin damage from that. But it was when we went in to replace it again that she went under anesthesia. We were all excited to get back on the medicine. She had to take a break for a little while for study protocol, and also because the PICC line fell out. And we were just so excited. And then she ended up going into cardiac arrest during that procedure. And that's really when she started to have, they did revive her. And she actually, when we went to see her afterwards, was sitting up and smiling, as if nothing happened. But it seemed like she was going to be okay after that. She still didn't have the PICC line. Actually, we were trying to get a port at that time, but they couldn't do it because she had the cardiac arrest right at the beginning of surgery. So we were scrambling to figure out what to do, and that's actually how they figured out that they can do intramuscular shots. So I guess if it wasn't for Sophia, they wouldn't have that option right now, because they were just like, we have to find another way to give it to her. And they did find that, and that was helpful. But when kids go under anesthesia, that takes a lot out of them. And then the cardiac arrest, it was too much for her body. So
how old was she when she was having the surgery that she had cardiac arrest?
About 11 months. So yeah, the end of 10 months, going into 11 months. And so she, like I said, she was happy sitting up right after, but in the week after, I'm still not sure if maybe she had like a mini stroke or something like that, like something changed. And you could just see in the pictures, she was really, really struggling from that point on. And, she powered through. We were getting more energy back. We'd get points of losing weight, gaining energy back, losing our energy. And actually during a time that we thought she was kind of rallying, that's when one night she ended up passing away. She just we went to see her in the middle of the night, and she was awake, but she was slowly just leaving. And we called 911. We did the whole CPR and everything, but they were unable to revive her. So I think that it was just that it took too much out of her, cumulatively, the wound care, the breathing problems, and then the cardiac arrest. She couldn't recover from that. So I always wonder, if that hadn't happened, or if we had never had to do surgical interventions. She responded so well to the treatment. Would she have been okay? Or the subset of EB, it's just it does things internally that I don't think we even completely understand what's going on in there. So it's hard to think back. Like, you always just think, what could I have done? What could I have done? And I just try to, learn from what we did, what we didn't do, what could have been done better. And I try to, share whatever I can with families that are going through it now. And if any of it can be of help to them.
I don't think we've spoken to any EB parent who doesn't have the what if question in their head. I mean, you can go the route of hospice and think, what if I had done these interventions?
Right.
Or you can go the intervention route and think, what if I had just gone with hospice? And I just admire you guys, because you just do what you think is best in that moment. And she was your first child, right? And
yeah.
What a way to be put into parenthood. Wow, that is just incredible. I'm getting really emotional because my daughter turns 1 year old next week. And I like, as someone who does not have a direct EB connection, one of the reasons I think me and other people within Eliana's army are successful in this is because we can step away. We can step away and disassociate and just put down social media and not have to think about it, because our kids are healthy. And I think that is a benefit in some ways, because we can just focus on the task at hand. And then in other ways, like, I come back to these stories and I put myself in your shoes, and it's just awful. And I'm so sorry that you had to experience that Sophia had to go through that. I want to hear a little bit more about, like, okay, it sounds like, I mean, it was a year. I know she passed at 13 months old. It sounds like it was 13 months of just chaos, of weighing and feeding and caring and bandaging. And what did life look like for you guys outside of Sophia? Or was it just 100% Sophia for that year?
Yeah, it was, I think we just became immersed in Sophia, and becoming medical parents, and just charting everything, and just, laying out bandages, cutting bandages, prepping it. I mean, I had a bandage room, I had drawers and drawers of supplies, and even just sorting supplies that were coming in. I relied a lot on my family and on my husband's family, and everybody kind of pitched in, and it was almost like we all just had jobs as nurses and doctors, and even like calling insurance companies all day long and trying to get things covered, or switching things, or just making sure doctor's appointments were on top of. It was all consuming, but it also kind of somehow felt normal eventually. In the first few months, I was overwhelmed. I think we all were, and my anxiety was super high, and I was, having breakdowns, and I was trying to, save face for Sophia. But the minute she was out of my sight, I like honestly having panic attacks, and I just had to decide one day that it was a conscious decision I had to make, that we were just I had to also be her mom, you know, and live this life as a normal life too. And she deserved that, and I deserved that, and our family deserved that. And so from that day forward, that's kind of, you know, what I did. I literally had to carve out time just to make sure we were playing, we were spending time together, we were not doing the medical side, but also doing the mom side and going places and trying to enjoy our lives. And that's hard to do when you have so much of your day devoted to medical things, and it can get lost. And I didn't, you know, in the back of my mind, I always knew I don't know how much time I have with her, and I had to make it just, this is her whole life, you know, and I had to give her a life. So we tried to do that as much as possible.
I would say you were successful because every single picture and video of her, I mean, she was truly the happiest baby. I mean,
Yeah.
always smiling. It was the cute. Oh, her videos just, oh, so cute. When she's playing with her grandma, like, and grandma's talking about, like, oh, you're gonna come to my house? Yeah, it's just the sweetest.
And before we took that video, she was like laughing. And then of course we took out the camera, like she was laughing, but not quite as much. As it was just the cutest moment. She thought it was so funny.
Well, and then also her care, I mean, she was alive during the start of COVID.
Yes.
So how did that affect things for you guys?
Yes. So actually, right around when she had that surgery with the cardiac arrest is when I forget if COVID hit right before that or right after, but it definitely, like, it affected the way we could care for her. It was we were usually, you know, going to Yale Hospital pretty much like daily, if not every other day, just for outpatient stuff, doctor appointments, specialists, getting certain medications, things like that. And so we were in and out of the hospital all the time on an outpatient basis. And that kind of, they decided it's too risky for her because with her airway issues, she like could not get COVID. So it actually gave us a lot of downtime, which was nice in a way, you know, but also we could have used those appointments. But what was actually nice about it is my husband, who's an attorney, he got to work from home, you know, for that time. And so we actually got to spend a lot more quality time with Sophia during a time when she really needed us, because that's when she had just happened to be struggling the most after that procedure. So in a lot of ways, it made it scary and difficult because we were so nervous about who was coming into our home. And she had a nurse that would come in, and we were scared about where the nurse was going before and after. Like, you know, everybody was just so crazy about letting anything into the house. So that part was increased anxiety. But I think the actual opportunity to kind of pause from the obligations of life and just focus on Sophia and focus on spending time with her in our home, it was actually kind of a blessing.
Yeah. Well, so talk to me now. You have 2 more children.
Yes.
You feel comfortable talking about how that came to be? Were you scared of them having EB, and, you know, what that journey was like for you?
Yeah. So when Sophia was like probably, you know, 10 months, 10 months, right before the surgery issue happened, she was doing so well. We were, you know, and we talked about, we want to give her a sibling, and we had been talking about, you know, what that would look like eventually if we ever did that, because, you know, she deserved to have somebody to play with and a sibling to love on. And so we had started looking into, okay, well, we can't go through that anxiety of not knowing whether the child's going to have this same condition and putting another child through that. So we started looking into IVF, and they offer IVF with pre-genetic testing. So you can test the embryos for EB before you implant them. And after Sophia passed away, like about a year after, we started talking about it again, that, you know, we still want to give her that sibling. And she was just such a joy, and we want that to live on to in our future children. And so we did end up doing IVF with the plan that I would do an egg retrieval, and we would have the embryos, and then we would freeze the ones that were healthy, that like we thought maybe we'd have more than one, and then we'd have maybe one or two more kids. And in the first case, we only had one healthy embryo.
Out of how many?
We had 7 embryos, and then 4 of them had EB, and 2 of them had like chromosomal abnormalities. And so that was shocking to me because, EB is, you think of each pregnancy as having a 25% chance, because my husband and I are both recessive, and that's what it is. Every time you get pregnant, it's going to be a 25% chance that the child will be affected and a 75% chance that they won't. And I know that's the statistics, but the reality is that you don't know what you could be 25% every time. And to think that, so many of those embryos had EB is kind of devastating. And so we tried the one healthy embryo, and it ended up being our son Braden. And it kind of felt like almost like a relief, knowing it was almost kind of meant to be, because that was the one that we were going to try. And if it didn't take, it wasn't going to take. And it did. And now that's our son. And actually, when we went to have our daughter Olivia, the exact same thing happened. The only healthy embryo was Olivia, and it took. And we have them both now. And Braden's 3, and Olivia just turned 1. So she's actually right about to be 13 months, and I've been kind of a mess lately because that's a hard time, to watch them surpass that time that Sophia had. It was hard when it happened with Braden. It's hard with Olivia. Braden just started preschool, which is wonderful, but Sophia never started preschool. So it's kind of, that's the hard part, is that with every joy with my other kids, it's always like, okay, Sophia didn't get to do that. So it's also a pain, so I never want my other kids to think that I'm sad about these milestones. I'm very happy about them. But it's hard when you've lost a child that's not able to do those same things.
Your kids are so young right now, but I'm sure you talk about Sophia with them all the time. Do they have any concept of this sister that's not here anymore? Or what does that look like to them, do you think?
Braden makes me feel really good, because he does talk about Sophia a lot. He knows about her. Whenever he sees kind of like a flicker of light on the wall, like a reflection from like my watch or whatever, he'll say, that's Sophia, Sophia's here. And because I talk about, if he sees a rainbow, I say, oh, maybe Sophia's saying hi to you. And I have a book that I made him, and that I have for Olivia too, that I'll start reading to her, that kind of explains, it says, I have a sister, and it explains that, she's here, she's in heaven, but she's with you when you're happy. She's with you when you're sad. She's with you to help you calm down. All these times that Sophia's there with him. And so we've always just kind of told him that that's his sister. He understands that it's his sister. I think it's a little bit more confusing now that Olivia's here, because that's a sister that he can play with and hold, and Sophia is not there in that physical way. But he knows she lives in heaven, and as they grow up, I'll be able to explain more and more about what that means. But just, they know that they have a sister, and we talk about her, and her pictures are around the house. We don't just have one shrine to Sophia. She's just part of our family photos. And we talk about her when we pass a picture, or it's a screensaver on our TV is all the kids' pictures, and she's in there too. And so we just try to make sure that they know that she loves them, that that she's part of the family.
Yeah. Did losing a child affect your relationship with your husband in a positive or negative way?
I think it brought us closer together, which I know it was always kind of a thought that, that relationships struggle when this kind of thing happens. And I think that it's almost like a choice that either goes one way or another way. And for us, it just made us have a different perspective on life, on our relationship, on what we want, like in a family. And just
How long had y'all been together before having Sophia?
we had been together like 6 years.
Okay.
I think 6 years. Yes. So, then like 10 years, like that, married 6 years.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So a while,
Yeah.
But we were like babies learning how to have a baby,
Right.
and that was really hard to have that crash course, with the medical side of it come into it. And while we're just trying to learn how to even be parents, like even learning how to be a new mom and dad is
I was thinking
terrifying.
about that when you said that you had all this anxiety and panic attacks. I was like, me too.
Right?
I was 3 months postpartum with my first, but also he wasn't a medical child,
Right.
So I think about like how much like I don't know, it just feels like a snowball of like, okay, you're freshly postpartum, which comes with all of its chaos anyways, but then also, oh my gosh, I have this, medically complex child.
Yep.
It's just, I'm not going to say I can't imagine. Ann Davis told me I cannot say I can't imagine. I can't imagine, and it's awful. But yeah, so talk to me about Sophia's Hope. And what did you guys do? Is it a nonprofit? What is Sophia's Hope?
So after Sophia passed away, it kind of came out of almost, I don't want to say selfish, but like I keep saying like making choices, because I feel like a lot of this is you just do have to make a choice of how you're going to almost cope with some of this stuff. And I knew I was facing, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get out of bed. I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep living this way. I'm just going to either be crying all day, or I have to do something productive with my grief. And that's why I started Sophia's Hope, because I needed to make her, I needed to use my grief in a positive way to help others, but to keep her memory alive and just to feel like I was still being her mom. That's the hardest part. Like I went from spending 24/7 doing medical care, taking care of her physically, to not having anyone there to take care of. And I almost needed to do something. I just needed to do something that made me feel like I was taking care of her. And so I thought, okay, by taking care of her community, that will make me feel like I'm taking care of her. And then as my grief kind of settled, and as I was moving into different stages of after her passing, it turned into, okay, well, I want to help these other moms that are going through what I went through. And I remember those panic attacks. I remember that feeling of just like not having any idea of what I was supposed to do. And there was one mom in Connecticut that happened to be, her daughter had the same, had junctional EB also, and the severe subtype. And she was like my lifeline. And I just wanted to be that for somebody else. And so I wanted to share Sophia's story. I wanted to help other parents in that situation. And so I made a website that I could share her story with, that other people could find me at. And we're not our own charity, but I just wanted to focus on helping fund research. So everything that I bring in just goes directly to the EB Research Partnership. And I've kept it that way, just because I do feel like with junctional especially, there's such a short lifespan, we need treatments, we need cures, and the only way to do that is to fund research. And so the best people to do that are the EB research partnerships. So I just try to navigate people to them. And then on a different level, I get a lot of moms reach out to me that are new into the community, and I just personally build a relationship with them and help them navigate the situation.
That's got to be healing in some ways and also incredibly hard to witness other babies go through that.
It is.
So,
Yeah. I'm grateful for other parents in the community too that help me do this. With it's sad every new mom that goes through this. I don't want them to go through it, but then it's one more parent that can be a resource for other families going through this. So I think it's important for us to recognize in each of the families, if you need to pull back and almost like remove yourself for a bit and let somebody else kind of take the lead, that's okay, because you get PTSD seriously from just seeing it because you've lived it, and sometimes I can handle that and sometimes I can't. And what's so great about the EB community is that there's a ton of support, and we help each other and we help the new families, and there's always somebody that you can talk to, whether it's about your grief or what you're going through with your child that's living.
Yeah, I was going to ask how you take care of your mental health, and you just answered it. You take steps away when you need to, and I think that's really great. So I want to now, since we're talking about Sophia's Hope, I'm going to show on the camera my Sophia's EB Hope shirt that we made just for Sophia, and it even has your website on the sleeve.
Awesome. I love
so these will be available on our website, and all proceeds will go to EB Research Partnership, to Sophia's Hope fundraiser for them. So how much have you raised through Sophia's Hope so far? Do you know?
Well, thanks to some really, really generous donors. We've had some years where a donor has given $100,000 to EB research, and then that same donor the next year gave $50,000. And we do a lot of our fundraising through the Plunge for Elity. The Plunge for Elity is something that also takes place in Connecticut, or it started with a girl that lives in Connecticut, a little girl with RDEB. And so they do such huge fundraising campaigns that we decided that most of our fundraising every year goes towards them. And we've just been really, really grateful for the amazing support that our friends and families and even people just all over the world have shown us. But even just the small donations or the awareness that we raise, we do like this little rock painting campaign where we encourage people to paint rocks and write our website on the back, and just teaching people about EB is something that's important to us, because what I like to say is, I like doing the rock painting because it gets kids involved, because to me, kids that are involved in advocacy are the next generation of scientists, the next generation of researchers, of doctors. Like, those are the people that are going to cure this for us. And I love to get families and children involved, because, getting people to care is the first step.
Yeah, and I can totally see also getting kids involved. Like, I can just see Sophia playing with other little kids. I never got a chance to meet her, but just through listening to you share her story, from reading your website and looking at her photos and videos, I feel like I know her. You've done a really good job of sharing her story. Yeah. And so I can just totally see her just playing with other little kids and having so much fun painting rocks and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's really sweet. That's a really great way to honor her too. So I was talking to my son. My local library just started like a painted rock garden thing. And I was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
we should paint a rock. And he was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
yeah, we'll paint one for Ellie. And I have Sophia's picture out on my counter because, you know, I was going to take it skydiving with me.
Oh, yeah.
And so he comes down every morning and it's like, there's Sophia.
Oh.
And so it's just real sweet. So
yeah, that is something that I think like all grieving parents can just relate to, is that when other people, and especially people that didn't know her, when they talk about her, you know, it's like hearing your kid come home from school and be like, I met a new friend, you know. And we don't get to do that, but when you guys talk about her or somebody else learns her story, that's what it feels like for me. Like that's the closest that I can get to that. And so that makes us feel really good. So thank you.
All of my coworkers know about Sophia too. I talk about her all the time, and I begged them for donations for the therapy. So everyone knows Sophia in my world. So and I will keep sharing her story because she is precious. And yeah, thank you for taking time to talk to me. I know this isn't easy, but you make it look easy.
Thank you. I don't know if I make it look easy, but
you do.
thank you for just taking this. Well, thank you just even for starting Eliana's Army, or helping, you know, to create that. What you guys are doing is amazing, and just having people spread all of this to the world is everything we could have hoped for. And I know that Sophie is kind of like, yeah, you're doing it.
Yeah, you are. You are. Yeah. Our goal is to at least change the name from the worst disease you've never heard of. So we want everyone to know about it. And I do hope that there will be a cure in our lifetime. So
Hope so.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Time with your family, and I will talk to you later.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.